Right now, I have Stewart Stadium all to myself, but this weekend I expect it to be packed with Wildcat fans as Weber State hosts Portland State for the first Big Sky Conference matchup of the season. Welcome to This Week in Big Sky Football.
3, 2, 1, go!
Hello and welcome to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm your host, Megan Robinson, here at Stewart Stadium at Weber State, home of the first Big Sky Conference matchup, Week 2, joined by head coach Mickey Mental. Coach, Week 1 against Washington, what were your key takeaways from that game?
Obviously, when we look back at it, the guys played hard. I thought we could have won a couple more battles one-on-one in the trenches, or definitely on the perimeter, get the passing game going. But from an optics standpoint, not too bad. But you learn a lot after game one. You make your biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. It is obviously the old cliche, and obviously I believe in that.
Damon Bankson led your team 16 carries, 108 yards on the ground. It was his first game since the end of last September. What does he bring to your offense?
Just a stable presence and the ability to take it the distance. Any touch he has tremendous speed and vision. It has great balance when there is contact in the open field. So just brings a reliable guy that has played a lot of football here at Weber, and we're going to obviously keep relying on him.
Portland, your Week 2 opponent, they had 449 yards of total offense led by quarterback Dante Sacheret. He's mobile, dual threat guy. How do you contain him?
Being gap sound, executing your assignment at the highest level. Our defensive staff puts our kids in really good positions to be successful. It's just executing a game plan. He's a tremendous player. He's gonna get his at some point in time in the game, just because of what he presents from an athletic ability standpoint and a throwing the ball standpoint. But if we're in our gap and keep him in the pocket as much as we can, that should go well for us.
We already mentioned home opener this weekend, first Big Sky Conference game of the season, a little bit earlier this year. How can this set the tone for the rest of your year?
Obviously you want to win each and every week, but when you play in the Big Sky, it's a tough one each and every week. Just starting off 1-0 is really good, and the conference is better than 0-1. It's easy to say that, but just want to play hard, play fast, physical, and execute at a high level. It is our main focus, and the results will go either way. But I think when you worry about results, you get caught up in that, and it's more about your process and your standard as a program, and just maintaining that here at Weber and keeping it on.
Week 1, you faced an FBS opponent in Washington. This week again, conference opponent. How do you get your team to shift the mindset from a non-conference game to a conference game so early in the season?
Yeah, it goes back to we worry about us and only about us, and it's never about the opponent. If we take that mindset after Monday when we put the game to bed, it's a new week. So whether you win, lose, you got to clear your mind and get ready for your new opponent, and that's the only opponent that matters that week.
Coach, thanks for your time. Good luck this weekend.
Absolutely.
Coming up, Portland State head coach Bruce Barnum joins the show to discuss the matchup with Weber State. Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football. I am Megan Robinson, joined now by head coach of the Portland State Vikings, Bruce Barnum. Coach, in your Week 1 matchup with Washington State, you found some success on offense, scored 30 points, gained 449 total yards. What is your focus at practice this week?
We need to clean up the defense. I don't want to give too much to Mickey, and then special teams. I had a lot of new people out there in special teams. I was happy with that. We had a couple delay games on punt. We cleaned that up, but happy with the offense, but sloppy. Defense needs to shore up and maybe simplify. And then special teams is again, I thought they did well, kind of an ongoing deal.
You're talking about shoring up the defense. Again, don't want to give anything away to your opponent, Coach Mental, this week. What were some of the positives that you saw on defense week one, if you had to pick one or two things that stood out to you?
Joe up front, 95, I thought played really well. One of my defensive tackles, new. We brought in 42 new people. I'm curious to evaluate the Vikes, Megan, after this week. I think my years in it, the second week kind of shows you who you are. So, I like how the guys responded on the field. We just got off the practice field. I like how they responded this morning. Again, I think if we just change a few things on defense, maybe we'll be able to hold Mickey to, 50 or so.
Coach, you said it's easier to evaluate a team after week two. The other aspect of your schedule this season is you are playing a Big Sky conference opponent, so you can see better how you match up with other people within the conference. How do you help your team adjust to going from playing an FBS opponent to a conference opponent in only the second week of the season?
It is. This is the quickest Big Sky conference game has been. I know it's the first one of the season for everybody, but it's a little bit of an adjustment. The guys know the importance of a Weber State game, of a conference game, or I should say of a conference game. And then you add Weber State being the first one. They do a lot of things right and they have a good football team, and we're at their place. I admire their coaching staff. We talk to the team, who they are. All the different aspects that we know about them. We haven't played them in a bit, but our guys are focused. They know what the Big Sky is.
Coach, your quarterback, Dante Sachere, threw for 175 yards, 3 total touchdowns, 2 of those on the ground. How would you assess his play heading into week two?
The thing I like most about Dante, he came out great, had some issues in the middle, but he came back on the football field, and I loved how he commanded the offense at that point, no matter what the score was. I like how he responded to some adversity we had on the sideline or into that second quarter and came back strong. I need him to play like that through the rest of each game. I like him in Big Sky games. He's fast. I don't know if he's fast. Everybody's got fast people, but I think he's faster than the majority of people on the field. But when he's out there commanding it and healthy, he's fun to watch. He gives us a chance.
On the flip side, looking at Weber State's offense, Damon Banksian ran for over 100 yards week one versus Washington. How do you slow him down this week?
I don't know. We're trying to figure that out right now, Meg. I mean, he's a dynamic player. And he's not a big one. He's a little one. So he's kind of jitterbugging around. And, to run by that group he just did shows you the talent he has. But he's fun to watch. He's a big part of their offense. They based everything kind of off him, how, they've decided to do some of the RPOs, run pass options. They'll, fake it to him and throw it to somebody. And, they do a nice job making him kind of the centerpiece of their offense.
How can this game help set you up for success in conference play the rest of the season?
Win it. I want to see the improvements from week one. They're ranked, it's our first FCS ranked opponent. And the only way to get ranked is beat a rank. So it's Big Sky Conference. Who knows? Better show up on Saturday.
Efton Chisum III's career night earned him Offensive Player of the Week honors. Hear from him after the break.
This time Despair is back under center, gets it out to Chisum. His third catch already. Chisum to the end zone. Touchdown, Eastern Washington.
It was a career night for Efton Chisum III. He is our Big Sky Offensive Player of the Week. 173 yards in that win over Monmouth. A lot of those yards coming after the catch. How do you always find ways to extend plays?
The way I practice and the way I go about my business, I really just try to get the most I can out of everything, with every catch, with every little detail. I'm trying to go score. Obviously, you can't score every time, but, just trying to get the most yards I can.
This is your 4th straight season where you've had a game with 3 touchdowns. How do you find the end zone so consistently?
I think Kakoa does a great job of just finding me in space, and Coach Shape does a really good job of game planning and seeing things how they're going to be on the field during the week on the film room. So I can't take any credit for it. It's all really my boys up front and Kuko, they always find a way to get me open and help me get into the end zone.
You mentioned Kakoa, of course, Kakoa Vesperis, your quarterback. He had 275 yards, 5 touchdowns in that win over Monmouth. How would you describe your dynamic with him on the field?
It's like a brotherhood, I think he knows where I'm at. I know where he's at all the time. I know how he wants me to run things, and I know how he wants me to run things. It's not just always football with him. Me and him have a great special relationship off the field. Just either it's hanging out, playing video games. I love the dude. I'm very thankful for him. I'm glad he's my quarterback.
How does having that bond off the field improve your connection on the field?
I think it helps tremendously. I think with building that bond off the field, he knows that, man, I can really trust him and count on him. It's not, I know he's gonna run the right route, or I know this. Like, he really knows like what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and I know for him, like, we've been through so much off the field that I know he's not gonna quit. I know he's not gonna give up. I know he's gonna battle through whatever comes his way. So I think like that's one of the biggest things to me that I've seen him grow personally, and that I don't take for granted, just being so close with him off the field.
As I said, 3 touchdowns in that win over Monmouth, bringing you up to 27 for your career total, tying with Kendrick Bourne for 7th all-time. Another guy who's had success from Eastern Washington in the NFL is, of course, Cooper Kupp. What's it like being mentioned in the same sentences as Kendrick Bourne and Cooper Kupp?
It's definitely surreal. I'd say that because, coming out of high school, both those guys' names. And then when you get here, you really get to study the film and get to see all their games that they played in and see what they did as their career. So that was kind of a huge part for me to be here and to come back and really leave my legacy here. Is just to be in the same conversation with those guys in the end of it when it's all said and done. So I'm blessed. I'm very thankful for everything they did for this program. And I don't think we can thank them enough.
Kendrick Bourne, Cooper Kupp, Chisum III. What does that say about the caliber of wide receivers that come out of Eastern Washington?
I just think we produce at the end of the day. I think, when the Big Sky came out with that thing of how many players are in the NFL from each team, we had 4 of them and 3 of them play receivers. So, I mean, that's got to tell you something. It's not just we don't have the flashiest stuff, the nicest stuff, but, we're just grinders. We love the process. We're not scared to get dirty and just get it the hard way. So I think both those guys, all 3 of those guys before me, really just set the foundation, and I'm just glad to be able to follow it and trying to get to where they're at someday.
Ever wonder what goes into creating the football game schedule? We break that down next on This Week in Big Sky Football. Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Megan Robinson. We have our first Big Sky Conference matchup when Portland State Vikings head here to Ogden to face the Weber State Wildcats this weekend. A lot of people interested in the fact that we have a conference matchup week 2. Dan Satter, Deputy Commissioner of the Big Sky, is here with me to shed some light on how we come up with the Big Sky schedules. Dan, how did this matchup happen so early in the season?
Well, Meg, it was not originally in the plan. And the way this really came about was as Weber State and Portland State were finalizing their non-conference schedules. It essentially created a domino effect where sliding this game up from where it was in conference play allowed them some more flexibility in what they wanted to accomplish with their non-conference opponent.
What are the parameters that go into creating each schedule?
This time around, when we developed these schedules a few years ago, there were 6 criteria that our members wanted. The first being that one of your first 2 conference games will be at home. On the back end, one of your last 2 conference games will be at home. We also, of course, incorporate in our rivalries, and that being the last week of play. So that automatically gets slotted in. Of course, they alternate where they're playing each season. And then a couple of the other criteria came from the coaches, actually. And one of the most important that they wanted to ensure happened was that no team was playing more than 3 games against a conference opponent coming off their open week. And we have some, other criteria too of working in annual opponents for our teams, as well as giving our schools the option to request one weekend where they could either ask to be home or not home. And the reason I say not home instead of away is If they're saying they don't want to be home, we could either put them in a road game or we could give them that open week.
How do you decide the 2 annual opponents for each team?
The way this played out for us was we went to each athletic director before we started this process, and we said, okay, rank in order the 4 schools you would like to play annually. We will give you at least one of those as your 2 annual opponents.
There are 12 schools in the Big Sky for football. Obviously, each team does not play every Big Sky opponent. How frequently will teams face all of the Big Sky schools?
We're doing a 6-year schedule, but it's really 2 3-year blocks if you look at it. And within each 3-year block, and we're just concluding the first 3-year block here in 24, so the 22, 23, and 24 schedules, within those 3 years, every school played every other school at least twice, once at home and once away.
Dan, the Big Sky Conference schedule is set through 2027. When will we start working on the next rollout?
I'd be lying if I said I hadn't already started thinking about it, but fortunately we do have a little bit of runway here with 3 years. So I would imagine after the 25 season, we would begin engaging our membership in discussions about the parameters again, because we obviously want to start with those, know what we're working with, and then we start building things out accordingly.
Ahead on This Week in Big Sky Football, volleyball underway with some notable wins, a big announcement from NAU Marching Band, plus game picks with columnist John Canzano. Weber State is home to the reigning Big Sky volleyball champs, whose quest for a repeat began last week. Here's what else is happening around the Big Sky. It was a busy first weekend of volleyball with several notable wins for Big Sky schools. Northern Colorado knocked off Michigan State 3-1. They also secured a 3-1 win over in-state rival Colorado State. Montana notched a 3-1 victory over Oregon State, and Montana State took down Middle Tennessee 3-1. Montana's soccer remains perfect at home after a shutout win over Indiana University, Indianapolis. The Grizz outshot the Jags 31-2, with the game winner coming in the 16th minute. Bayless Flynn got her first career start and goal, filling in for All-Region keeper Ashlyn Dvorak, who was out indefinitely with an injury. The NAU cross-country teams picked up where they left off last season, with both the men and women taking first place in the George Kite Classic. Plus, the Lumberjack Marching Band is headed to the Big Apple. It was announced they'll be representing the state of Arizona at the 2025 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That's what went down this week around the Big Sky. With me now is John Canzano, a columnist for johncanzano.com, also a radio host. John, you've been covering Portland State for quite some time now. I'm going to get your game picks in a little bit, but what's your overall perspective of the team this season?
Well, look, I think they've got a really difficult schedule. When you look at all the ranked teams they're playing, all these great Big Sky teams they're playing, it stacks up to be a really challenging year for Bruce Barnum.
John, let's get to some game picks. We're going to start with Sacramento State, heading to Fresno State this weekend. Both teams looking to bounce back from week 1 losses. Who you got?
I like Fresno State. Bulldog Stadium is a tough place to play. I closely watched both of those teams play in week 1. Fresno State played Michigan better than the 30-10 score. I think Fresno State bounces back, beats Sac State. I think Sacramento State is a program on the rise, but this game I think is too big for it.
Last week, the Idaho Vandals pushed the number 3 team in the FBS Oregon Ducks to the brink. That game came down to the 4th quarter. The Ducks pulled out the win in that one. This week, Idaho heads to Wyoming. Can the Vandals get it done week 2?
Yeah, tough because, Idaho loses their starting quarterback with a broken collarbone in this one. So, this game's got 14-10 written all over it, but I think Idaho finds a way. Jason Eck is a very creative coach, really impressed with what he did at Oregon, but it's like 14-10, 10-7. It's not going to be pretty.
Finally, our game of the week, Portland State heads to Weber State for the first Big Sky Conference matchup of the season. I've spoken with both coaches and they said, usually you can determine a team's identity in week 2. Well, week 2, they're facing a conference opponent. Who you got in this matchup?
Well, Portland State's got some injuries, and in particular, they've got injuries at the quarterback position. Everybody looked at the backup spraining his ankle, but also Dante Sachere left the game at Washington State middle of the game. Won't be surprised if we see a true freshman, Crew Newman, at some point at quarterback. Keep an eye on him. I'd love to pick Portland State. It's the team I see all the time, But Weber State's at home, and given the quarterback problems right now at Portland State, I'll go with Weber State.
Well, John, we will see how everything shakes out on Saturday and who, in fact, is the quarterback for Portland State. I really appreciate you being here, picking some games with me, and talking Big Sky football.
Thanks for having me, Megan. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for joining me for another episode of This Week in Big Sky Football. Once again, I'm Megan Robinson. I'll see you next week.